everybody. This is our Women for Solution 140-second webinar, where we create awareness, we connect, we learn, we inspire. We inspire to action, to reimagine and regenerate a world of what the caring economy is, and you saw it there. I'm Laura Jadru Koch, founder of Women for Solution. It's a global network of thousands of women and men, entrepreneur in over 40 countries. And what we do is we share simple and effective solutions towards a caring economy. These tools that we can choose to implement and range from simple to developing personal skills to business skills. And today, you will be absolutely inspired because we're sharing one of the most amazing tools for education that is the third pillar of the caring economy. Today, we're going to talk about Nardagani, one of the simplest methods to really learn to read. But when you read, most people might not understand what they're reading. But with this method, actually you do. That's the magic. And our speaker today, Narda Pitkethly from Idaho, United States. She is a friend and an amazing human being because she's the creator of this very simple methodology that really is helping kids from that have autistic problems and can barely speak to read and be proud of reading, to grown-ups and inmates that are in prison that have never learned to read, and now they can. And so in prison, instead of thinking what mischief they can make, they learn to read and become better. So on that, before I give the word to Narda, I would like to share with you our Women for Solution empowering move, because we believe that the simple thing is also to be empowered. So I want you to all put your shoulders up, your chin up, your eyes that twinkle with joy and determination, and with a super wide smile, because everything in life, we need to find a way to smile at it. And Narda is going to be an amazing speaker about this methodology created and she's built.
All right. Thank you so much, Laura, for that wonderful introduction. I'm very happy to be here. I'm honored to be here. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I have a PowerPoint. I'll move through it fairly quickly so that we can keep moving with this program. And first, I'd like to simply give you a short introduction of me. I grew up with a father who was a doctor in the military, and we moved and moved every year. Growing up, I was in a new school, and mostly around the United States, but we had the opportunity to be in Japan for several years when I was a little girl. And then when I graduated from university, I went back to Japan, and I lived there for 3 years. I taught English and did all kinds of interesting things. And I was told I wanted to learn Japanese, and I was told to learn to read first. So I believed them, and I gave that a try. And they have a very simple way. Hiragana lives below the complicated words, kanji characters. And I learned to read, memorize hiragana in 1 week. I could read everything, everywhere. I didn't know what I was reading at first, but I learned Japanese very quickly because I'm visual. So then when I moved away from Japan and came to Idaho and got married and had children, my daughter was a challenged reader in first grade, and I just didn't understand how I could learn to read Japanese in a week. And she was struggling with her own language, only 26 letters. And the short story is that I adapted the Japanese method inspired by the Japanese method, I adapted it to English. And here we go. That's my little introduction about me. Thank you so much for being here. And let's see.
And I have to say that the reason why I'm so connected with Narda is that I'm dyslexic. And when I was introduced to this program, and I read it and took the coaching sessions. I said, if only I would have learned this not at 50, but when I was a little girl, my life would have been so different.
Mm,
It's an amazing method.
thank you. Yes, that was very exciting to have you go through the program several years ago. So I want to start out with this slide, which shows, it's a graph showing we've done many pilot programs all over the world and schools, detention facilities. And this is one of the most recent pilot programs. We taught 76 sixth graders here in Idaho, in southern Idaho, in 3 months. These are our results in just 3 months. We did a pre-test in September and then a post-test 3 months later. And you can see that the blue area is the pre-test before we taught them Nardagani, and then the orange is the post-test. And the majority of these students learned to read, and they went up by 1 to 2 to 6, 5, 6 grade levels. It was really quite astonishing. And this is the kind of results that we see every day with our program, people learning in a very short amount of time. It's giving me. I am going to share a couple slides about the literacy crisis that we're having in English-speaking countries, especially here in the United States. 19% of high school students in America who graduate are unable to read above a 3rd grade level. I was part of an educational forum a little over a year ago, and all the talk was of the 2019 reading results, test scores that had come in, and for K through 12 throughout the United States. And it was astonishing that only 30% of students in America were reading at grade level. So that was very, very astonishing. So it was a lot of the talk. And then this slide, just to let you know, illiteracy is the greatest predictor of future criminal activity. It's pretty shocking when I learned that. So and there's one more slide, and it also, the cost to society is phenomenal because of the crime, poverty, welfare, all the things that I put on the slide here. So that's enough of that. Let's move on to this is a little introduction of Nardagani. You may have seen some of this if you saw my TEDx talk. Basically, I broke down the English alphabet that's 26 letters. And what I realized is that there are 12 letters that only make one sound, and they're on the left. Those letters only make one sound. They're the easy letters. The letters on the right, there are 14 that make multiple sounds. And I believe this is the reason English is so difficult to learn to read, because you're a student, a person is sounding out a word, but they don't know what sound to make because the letters make so many different sounds. And this is really the foundation of our program, is we teach all the sounds of all the letters in a short amount of time. And we have fun and we play games and make it a very interesting, fun program. These are the 12 symbols. The symbols mostly represent, they're an easy way that I came up with them because there's an easy way to remember what sound they make. And you'll see some of these symbols as we go through this PowerPoint. Here's a little sample of the S and the E.
Before you start, can you mention that you have a TEDx talk that has more than 1 million views?
Yes. Yes.
Very important.
Thank you so much, Laura. Yes, I was able to get on a stage and do a TEDx talk, and it's under 10 minutes, and it basically gives examples of the program, and we have over 1 million views. It's very exciting. People are sharing the TEDx talk with others. People are finding it all over the world. Thank you, Laura. I wanted to let you know about that. So here is just a little sample of how the symbols are under the S. So every letter in the alphabet makes a main sound, and then 14 of the letters make additional sounds. So the main sound of S is snake. Then S makes 3 more sounds. The first one is sugar. That's everyone's favorite symbol. The sound, the square is your lips, the line is your finger, and the sound it makes is sugar. S also makes z very, very often. Is, was, always. So instead of making up a symbol for that, I used a letter, which has helped me keep the program to 12 symbols because I use letters when I can. And then television, that zh is a very, not a very common sound, but it's used in common words. Television, measure, treasure. And so I put a Z with a line through it, kind of like a money symbol with a line through it, but a Z. And then E makes 4 sounds. The E, tree, is the main sound. And that's the smile symbol. We'll see a little bit about that in a few more slides. Elbow. That's the schwa. It's well known as the schwa, up arrow, and oo, like a spooky jack-o'-lantern's eye, is the E also makes the oo sound. Okay, so I'm going to teach you just take 5 minutes to teach you a few of the symbols in Nardagani, and then we're going to do a little Nardagani challenge. So whenever a letter does not make a sound in a word, we underline it so it's easy to see. This is the first concept we teach in Nardagani, and the students love it because suddenly it makes sense. Oh my gosh, there's that letter that isn't making a sound and it's underlined so they can see it. So it engages students very quickly when we introduce this as the first. Well, we've done so much testing over the years, and that's what we found, is that this is the best way to start the program. And you see lots of letters underlined there. Look at the 8 at the bottom. 8. There's only 2 sounds, 3 silent letters together. That happens. Okay. The second item we teach, and of course we go through games and exercises to teach these. We don't go through quickly. We go through a little bit more slowly, but it is pretty rapid. So the next thing we teach is that the main sound of the vowels is that they say their name. So we call it the name sound. They don't need a symbol because they simply say their name. A, E, I, O, U. And you'll see an example of this shortly. Do you notice the little icon that is next to each one? That's a little place where we always have a place where students can click and hear the sound, because we have a pronunciation piece. We want them to see it, we want them to hear it, and then we have exercises where it's a kinesthetic way of learning, where they're actually using their hands and writing it. So we're bringing in as many senses as possible. This is the smile symbol. The A, this A makes A, like ape, and A makes A, like apple. And this is one of the visuals we show, and we say you have to open your mouth. Apple. So now we're going to go into the challenge. So you've learned enough. We also go through the consonants. So now when they get to this challenge, we don't have the other sounds that they haven't really learned yet in these challenges. We make it very fun, easy, and it builds confidence in their reading. Mike, so they've learned these letters, and the E is silent. It's not Mikey. Can ride a bike. Mike can read and write. Is very fun creating the stories that go with these that are words that don't have the other sounds of the English language so that they can start slowly. Can you read and write? You can. And sure enough, our students have a very easy time with these simple challenges because they've learned the few symbols at that point, and they're going to build on each other. One more thing I'm going to show you is that here is an example of letters under letters so that I could keep the program to 12 symbols. Is, of, face, liked, happy, happiness, fly, my, and look at eyes. Can you imagine being a challenged reader and trying to figure out what that word is when you've got the two E's are not making a sound and the Y is making I? Eyes. Once they learn the program, they are have a lot easier time with sounding out words. Oh, and this is the little challenge we do after they learn that letters are under letters. Dave liked Grace. He asked her for a date. Grace had a nice smile and green eyes. Okay, now I'm going to talk about who uses the Nardagani program. Inmates. We've been teaching our program at our local jail. About 100 inmates a year go through our program, and we've been teaching it for, actually, we're coming up on 8 years, so I need to change that to 800 inmates. Although during the pandemic, we didn't teach as many. And then challenged readers, not just people who have dyslexia, autism, ADD, but students like my daughter. She was not diagnosed with any of those. She just could not learn to read with the way it was being taught to her. And she struggled. So there's people all over the board with all different kinds of learning obstacles. And then ESL. We have people, right as of today, people are purchasing our program, individuals and schools, in 68 countries around the world. It's very exciting. I've noticed one of our students here on this webinar. Thanks for being here. So it's exciting, all the people we can reach. We've taught from 4 years old to 77, maybe even older at this point, and all backgrounds. The 4-year-olds often test out at a kindergarten, first and second grade level after going through our program. It's very exciting. And we have 1.5 billion people learning English as a second language worldwide. 35 million adults in the US are native speakers of a language other than English. And studies show that when people learn English, they have an easier time making more money. So it's very exciting to be part of this and have a solution. I really like this slide. This shows the A that makes 4 sounds, and the one in blue is ah. That is the sound that many languages use, like Japanese and Spanish, casa. And so a Japanese speaker or Spanish speaker have never had the other 3 sounds in their mouth before. They need to learn how to say a. They're used to ah, open their mouth up, and where is that in the mouth? We have a pronunciation program that helps people learn how to put those new sounds in their mouth, and then the symbols help them see it. So it's highly effective. And we have that for the E, I, O, U, and many of the other letters of the alphabet. The same thing. People are learning sounds they've never had in their mouth before. here is an example. I wanted to tell you about our pronunciation program. It's actually my mouth. And when people are going through our program, like I was saying, there's always an icon where they can click when they're learning a new sound, or a letter or a symbol. They can always click, and then there's my mouth. I come on and I do the sound. Then I say what's happening in my mouth, and then I make the sound again. And people are reporting that this is highly effective. And I picked this slide because there's two more Nardagani symbols. The 2 lines is for the soft TH, and we say, think of your 2 rows of teeth or your 2 lips, and it's, you push the air out. But look, I'm basically sticking my tongue out. People learning English as a second language often are not used to sticking their tongue out when they talk. So this is a tricky sound to make, but they, with practice, they can succeed. And then the TH makes another sound. The 3rd line is extra vibration. So if you can say thumb, you can feel you just push the air out. 3, you can go, join me in this on your own. Teeth. And then fa, it's a much harder, kind of makes my lips tingle. Feather, mother. Fascinating, isn't it? I just love this. Thank you so much for letting me share this. Oh, and there it is.
The front of your upper teeth are on the middle of your tongue. Push air out.
Let's see if I can get this one to play.
The front of your upper teeth are on the middle of your tongue. Hum.
I wanted to show you a little bit about our Spanish program. We have our English program is digitized, and you're going to see that in a minute. The Spanish program, we're still working to digitize it, but I wanted to show you how the symbols, we always use the same symbols across all languages. We've got this in a couple other languages, because it makes things simple, and it's all about being simple. The A, ah, 2 dots. The reason why I came up with the 2 dots is because the word dots, people can remember that. There's the for the elbow. And A always makes ah, unlike English. E always makes I always makes E. O always makes O. And the U always makes ooh, spooky jack-o'-lantern. This is just one small sampling of the Spanish program, but you can see how it can help people. I'm just going to tell a quick story. We have people who come into our local jail, and if they're Spanish speakers, everyone who first comes to class gets tested. Where are they on, how well do they read? How poorly do they read in English? If they're Spanish speakers, we test their Spanish. If in fact they are Spanish as a first language and they can't read Spanish, which is quite common, we teach them to read Spanish in 2 hours. They leave their very first class in our 2-hour jail class, which we do a couple times a week, all year long. They leave with books in Spanish, and they've learned the few symbols. It's not nearly as complicated as English. And they leave the class knowing how to read Spanish for the first time in their lives with books. It's just phenomenal, very exciting. And here is, I wanted to mention that the Nardagani Reading Program has been approved by the Idaho Department of Education. Here in Idaho, it was no small feat to get this done. They're very rigid, but they were very excited when I did my presentation and went through the application process. So that's a fantastic piece. And Dr. Jeffrey Wilhelm, pictured here in the lower right, he is an internationally recognized teacher of English, and he's written, I think he's up to 37, written and co-written 37 books. His focus is on 5th grade through high school, because he feels like that's the time that these kids are going to drop out of school. They're going to go down the road towards getting into trouble. So he really focuses on that. And it took a while for me to get his attention. If you go to our website and go to our testimonial page, at the top of the page is a 10-minute interview with Dr. Jeffrey Wilhelm. And he's a very dynamic speaker. He's very funny. And he talks about how took me quite a while to get his attention. But once I did, he was very excited to conduct a research study on our program. And he found that it was super easy for the teachers to learn and easy for the students to learn, to be taught. And we had 100% success. So I encourage you to go to our website, nardagani.com, and go to our testimonial page and play his video. He's very, very dynamic speaker. Okay, here is a look inside our digital program. This program can be purchased on our website. At this point, it's $29 for 1 month, and most people go through our program in a month. They don't need to have more time, but if they do, they can purchase another month. If they're a tutor and they're tutoring people, then they do tend to purchase over and over. When you first open the program, people click on the introduction, and that is about an hour-long teacher training. And it's me teaching you how to teach this program, and it's interactive. And then you go to lesson 1 and you go through as part of the teacher training. It takes maybe another hour, so an hour in the introduction portion, and then about another hour, depending on how long you take. Some people go slower, some people go quicker. Then you go through the 6-lesson plan. You go through the handwriting tool, which is a stroke order. Fabulous. People love that. You go through the extra teaching tips, and you'll see that if a student is having trouble with a letter or a symbol, the teacher can go to the extra teaching tips and download and print a exercise that will help the student practice on that letter or symbol and other things, ed endings and things like that. There's our pronunciation tab. You have my pronunciation of every sound in English, which I have broken down to be 38 sounds. Some reading programs say 44, but they're also combining letters, and I don't do that. Again, not only is the pronunciation tab throughout the 6 lessons for the student, then you can also find it right there in the pronunciation tab. And the last tab is the print tab. And we've set it up so that you can access all our lesson materials, our books, and our games. You can look at them right there, or you can download and print them. We built this program to be easy to use and inexpensive. And that's what we've been able to be able to do. So the next slide is going to show you the 6-lesson plan. So you'll see a little bit more detail about what's inside those 6 lessons. Here is a really good view of lesson 1, and the lessons. There is a lot of repetitiveness as we move through the lessons. Lesson 1, you start with module 1, and this is an interactive module where I do the teaching. You've got me, I pop up, it's my voice, it's my face, and I teach the students. If you are the student, or if you have a student, your child, or a student you're tutoring or teaching, I teach the silent letter. And then at the end, I say, okay, now we're going to go to module 2. You can follow along. We highly recommend in the teacher training that you follow along the 6-lesson plan. But I also cue you that now you are going to go do this next and this next. And the student, it's an interactive program. Number 3 is the coding practice sheet. That's where the facilitator has the paper, and that's where the student has their writing utensil and does that kinesthetic writing the symbols on the coding practice sheet of words that they've just learned. And they really have fun doing that because they've just learned the symbols that are on that practice sheet. And then we've got a memory match game throughout the whole thing. Here's a tutorial on how we play it. And then memory match 1 is matching the vowels and saying the sounds. Then module 3 is the smile symbol, and then the coding practice sheet 2, which is a smile symbol. And then there's homework coding practice sheet 1 and 2 for a review. There's a writing columns exercise, and then there's playing memory match found in the print tab. So I know I'm kind of going a little fast. It's very exciting. So that takes typically about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to go through each lesson. When a student is very young, like a 4 and 5-year-olds, or if they're very challenged, it might take twice as long. You might cut that lesson in half, which I talk about in the teacher training. Just cut it in half, get through coding practice sheet 3, and then the next lesson come back and do the memory match tutorial. And each lesson has a review of the lesson before. So those are the 6 lessons. The other thing I would like to say is that once students go through, the first 4 lessons are really teaching the 12 symbols. And we put in the games and the exercises and reading books, those little challenges to build the confidence. Lesson 5 is reviewing. And there's some very fun review games and sheets in there, one where everybody writes their name and then codes their name. The students love to. Everyone loves to code their name. And then their siblings and their family's name and their pets' names and their friends' names. It's a very fun exercise to do, and they've learned all the symbols and all the letters of the alphabet by then. Lesson 6 is focused on a game, which it's a bingo format with the advanced flashcards. That's when everything really comes together. You've got a flashcard that says, what are the 4 sounds of A? And they have to guess. And it's a digital game, or they can also print it out of the print tab and have the flashcards in front of them. They might not know the 4 sounds of A exactly in the game the first time through, but the second time or third time, they're like, yeah, I know the 4 sounds of A. I know the 6 sounds of the sh that makes, and the 4 sounds of the oo. It's very exciting to see it all come together with the bingo game. Lesson 7, as we say in our 6-lesson plan, is simply reading our many coded practice books, practicing this new skill. Our practice books are humorous. I mean, isn't humor fantastic? So they're engaging, they're humorous, and they are they get harder as they go to the next one and the next one and the next one. And so often our students, let's say we have a 4th grader that gets through coding practice book 7. Well, coding practice book 8 is actually above a 4th grade level, but because they know the symbols, they can sound out the words. So often they say, yes, I want to do coding practice book 8. I want to do the next book. I don't care if it's above my level. I can do this. So they're practicing sounding out words, and they're collecting sight words. So the easy words, there's the books are entertaining and humorous, but they're also quite repetitive. And so they'll learn names. Once they learn Sandra, after the first 3 times they've seen it, they don't need the symbols to see that that's Sandra. They don't need to sound it out. It's the same way with so many other words in our language. They've already learned them. They know all the basic words. And then the coded practice books, they're really just learning some of the new words, some of the new names, and they're having success. And often our students are above grade level when they come out of the program. So 7, 8, lesson 7, lesson 8, lesson 9, lesson 10 are just reading. And then when they're done with all the coding practice books, they move on to the suggested reading list, which is a list of books that are humorous, that are my favorite books, that start at a low level. And that's where they start reading without the symbols. And if they can't find those exact books, I have the level marked, the AR level, so they can go to their bookstore, library, thrift store, and they go online and they can buy books that are in that level. And they just slowly, even adults, start with the lowest level. And they realize there's no symbols and I'm fine. It's like removing the training wheels from a bicycle. Once you know how to ride with these training wheels, you don't want those training wheels anymore. Get rid of them. You're off and going. The same thing with reading and the symbols. Once they know how to read, they don't need the symbols anymore. And one thing we also find is the symbols will always be kept up here in the brain. So when a student comes across a word that is not coded and they don't know, their brain can go, oh, okay, here's an A. Which sound would that be? And they just figure out, going through the symbols in their brain. We have actually some wonderful testimonials on our testimonial page, video testimonials from parents and teachers and students. And that's one of the things they talk about. The symbols are up here. I don't need them anymore. It's really quite exciting. Okay, thank you. Here, we're almost done with our little slideshow. These are some of our results, and our success is when students improve their reading by 1 to 2 grade levels. That's success. And you can see from some of our pilot programs that I have here that we have a high success rate with adults, with students, and even in India, at the bottom there, we had 10 students that were 5-year-olds learning English as a second language, and they had 100% success in that program. And then older students in India that were challenged with English, and they also had 100% success. I have written a book called Nardagani. It's a memoir, and it's really my story of why not only was my daughter a challenged reader, but other things happened in my life to push me down this path to create this program. And you learn about why we call it Nardagani. And it's a memoir. It's a mystery. It's a thriller. It's all true. It's a page turner. And you can go to Amazon and read reviews. I've got quite a few of them. People really enjoy this story. So we touch on Nardagani. So it's great to learn how I developed this program. But it's just a really great story of it's some heavy topics, but I like humor. So I've got humor, inspiration, and it is an inspiring book. It will be out on Audible. I narrated the book. It'll be out on Audible by the end of this week, I believe. I think or maybe it's the 20th of June. So keep your eye out for that by the end of this weekend. Here's my contact information, my phone number, that's my cell. There's our website. The Tedx Talk is on our website. On the homepage, just scroll down a little bit. It's also, if you wanted to simply Google TEDx Narda, it pops up. I have that unique of a name, TED, don't forget the X. TED Talks are done by famous people, and TEDx, the X means that TED has gone into smaller communities and given people in smaller communities the opportunity to get up on stage and talk about ideas worth sharing. That's what TED is all about. Thank you. You've learned some of those symbols, and hopefully you will be intrigued enough to possibly go on our website and buy the program for $29. It's helpful for not only people who are challenged with reading, learning English as a second language, but even people who are challenged with spelling. It helps. So you'll learn the 2 sounds of N.
This is fantastic, Narda. This is really fantastic. And I'm telling you, as a dyslexic, I think it works. And it's miraculously simple, as you saw today. If there's any questions, please raise your hand or open your mic, and we'll open. In the meantime, Narda, tell us a little bit. It's already more than 20 years that you're using this symbol. Have you evolved in the last 20 years and seen that this program is getting simpler and more effective, or you created that at the get-go and then it's always been the same? Tell us a little bit more, and why is what it is now?
That's a great question. I I started the best I could. But no, it has evolved. When we had the opportunity, I had the opportunity, and really we have a whole team, had the opportunity to go into the local jail in 2011. We suddenly had, every student I taught, even before that, I would teach a student and I would say, oh my gosh, I need to change the symbols a little bit, change the order that we teach the symbols. There were things that happened all the way through with every student, it seemed like, in the first few years, a new game, a new book. And then when Dr. Jeffrey Wilhelm conducted his research study in 2015-16, he came up with 6 ways to make the program easier to learn and easier to teach. And we did every one of those. And it really did help. And then we digitized the program. The digital program came out in 2019. And we've even changed that. When we get feedback, we tweak it. So we're all about how can we make this program easier. And it is easy to change. It's relatively easy to make updates. We haven't made any for a long time because I think we've got it pretty much figured out, but we're very open to making more changes if somebody comes up with a good idea of how to make it easier. We're up for that.
That's fantastic. If there are any questions, please raise your hand. Otherwise, Narda, if you can tell us a little more about the impact it's had on autistic kids, on kids that are really, really on the spectrum, and why do you think this program works?
Well, hopefully you'll take the opportunity to watch my TEDx talk. It's under 10 minutes, and I teach an autistic boy. He's in 5th grade, Sven. I taught him to read with this program, and he couldn't read in 5th grade. He couldn't read a single word. And in 8 lessons, he was reading our coded practice books, and you'll see in the TEDx talk that we go through that a little bit. I believe that it's magic. It feels like magic sometimes. It's just that we start with it very simply with the silent letter, and students can relate to that. Almost every letter, names not as much, but almost every word has a silent letter in it. And so immediately they're just hooked right in. Over and over, I've taught students who have to come in after school, and they're bummed when they first come to the program. The first day, they're like, I'm a dummy. I've got to be in this special program instead of out playing. And within 15 minutes, they are engaged. And I believe it's because of the silent letter. I had one boy who came in jumping up and down for he came in frustrated on his first class and then jumping up and down on his second class. And he said, I'm seeing all the silent letters out there. They're everywhere. They weren't underlined out there everywhere, yet he was seeing them. It all made sense. And I think that's the key, is that we're tapping into something that makes sense. I'm working with teachers that say, this last teacher I've been talking with this week, she has a 7th grader who can't read. She's been working with him for 3 years. He's in middle school. She started the Nardagani program about a month ago, and he is excited. He's learning to read. His parents are excited. He's getting better grades in his other classes. I mean, it's a ripple effect.
Narda, this is so fabulous. Can you tell us a little bit about the neuroscience of this program? How does it affect the brain, and why is it so simple and so effective? Why?
Okay, so that is something that Dr. Wilhelm, when he was first looking at this and teaching this program, he didn't understand. He kept saying, why is this working? Why is this working so easily and so quickly? Because he said that no programs work like this. It doesn't make sense. And it took him a long time to figure it out. And finally, several months in, he said, it's the cognitive overload that learning to read and hundreds of reading programs are out there, and they are developed by teachers who are mired in rules and exceptions, combining letters, and it's overload for the brain. Nardagani doesn't have that. The brain is, the program lacks cognitive overload. It's simple. And that's what Dr. Wilhelm concluded, is that there's no cognitive overload in our program like there is in the other reading programs that are on the market.
So basically, because when you're reading impaired, basically your brain is so focused on trying to figure out the letters that you can't put the letters together to make sense, no? And so the brain because of the symbols, you open up space for understanding as a next step, rather than just understanding getting to read the letters.
Right. And seeing a letter that makes 4 different sounds, and your brain goes, uh-oh. And yet with our program, the way we start so slowly and easily and gently, our methodology and the way we teach it has a lot to do with how easy it is to learn.
So I have a question from Alexandra. She thinks the program is fantastic. My question is how this method is easier than the CVC method teachers use in public school in the United States. I don't know if you can be more specific about CVC. Do you teach about syllable division with your method?
Yes. So CVC is consonant, vowel, consonant. And that's a good system for very early readers. We don't teach that. We teach what sound the consonant makes, what sound the vowel makes, and what sound the consonant makes. And we have the symbols. So we're focusing on sounding out words with the symbols, not CVC, which I didn't even know what that was long ago. It was like, what is this CVC thing? So that seems like a little bit of a complicated concept. So we don't go there. That anything is complicated, I tend to push to the side, and instead we teach consonant. We teach the sound of the consonant, the sound of the vowel, and the sound of the consonant. But it is similar to CVC. And what was the second part of that question? I can pull that up too.
Do you teach about syllable division with your method?
We do not teach about it, but in the teacher training and in the extra teaching tips, the main place that we talk about that is if somebody is struggling with a word, sounding it out, we say divide the word. Teach the first syllable, then the second syllable. Teach it in syllables if they're struggling. But so often, because of the symbols, they don't struggle to sound out words. So no, we don't specifically teach the syllables. We just, only if they're struggling with the word do we break it down.
Excellent. Brilliant, brilliant. I think this is so simple that it just opens my heart with love, because I think that you make life so easy for so many children and grown-ups to really master reading, because reading is the key to knowledge, the key to communicating, to absorbing the millennials of culture that we have. Otherwise, you're just stuck with what is on TV or what is on your audio files. So here's a Teresa, Dia Teresa. She's from. She has said she's followed you for many years from the Max Cassot era. I'm not sure what that is, but she thinks that the method is fantastic. And we have a few more minutes for another question. What other questions people ask you in general whenever you have a conversation like that?
That's so I wanted to say to Teresa, you probably like my memoir. People who've been following me and then they read that, they're like, oh my gosh, it all comes together. So the audiobook will be out in a few days, but the regular book is there. One of the main questions I get is, how do students go from reading with the symbols to reading without the symbols? And when I was in Japan and I learned hiragana, hiragana always lives under the kanji, 2000 kanji, 46 hiragana, always, always, always. So when I first developed this program, I just figured the symbols would always have to be under the words. Then my first student was like, I don't need those symbols anymore. I'm like, well, what do you, in 2006, I had my first student. So what do you mean? You really? And that's when I realized, just like the training wheels on a bicycle, once students learn to sound out words and the symbols are in their head, they don't need them. They don't even want them. They want to read without the symbols. So the reading all the coded practice books possible that we have 9. And again, most of them are very humorous, fun books. And then going on, and some students, like a first grader, the book 6, book 7, those are more third grade. Again, they still want to read them, or maybe the parent or the teacher will read some and then they read some, one sentence. So, and then when they move on to the suggested reading list, they really find that they can read without the symbols. The symbols help with pronunciation. One other piece I wanted to talk about is that in hospitals, for example, there are these very brilliant doctors and nurses and people who work in hospitals, and they can read English, they can write, and they can speak. But their pronunciation sometimes is so difficult that you can't really understand what they're saying. And so we have actually hospitals, the network of hospitals, there's online courses that doctor and nurses, even the people who are doing anything in a hospital are taking. We're looking into getting our pronunciation program into those markets also. So the pronunciation is very helpful because of the symbols and the pronunciation. So
Narda, tell us a little bit about the impact you're having since you are digital, and how has this changed? Because when I met you, Narda, it was a box that was quite expensive, and you needed to prepay the box and everything, so it could reach very few people. Now with digital, it's is massive. So tell us a little bit about the shift and the impact it's having.
yes, the box that I remember you going through, Laura, was very difficult. We had a very difficult time. It was very expensive to ship it outside the United States. So it took our inexpensive program and made it expensive. So it didn't really make sense to do that. Dr. Wilhelm was very helpful in saying you need to get this digitized so that anyone in the world, I mean, we have people buying the program, and I have to Google the country. It's like, where is that country? I just, it's amazing the little pockets of places that are finding the Tedx Talk is typically what they do. And then they go to our program and they can just buy it. So, and the reason why we put the print tab is that if they have a printer, hopefully in the outback, 3-hour drive from any town, it's amazing the people I've talked to, that they can somehow print it, but they can also just view it, and they can take notes on their piece of paper and put the exercises down if they need to do that. But we've built the program to have the teacher training digital, the lessons digital, and the materials are digital. But people can also buy the coded practice books online on Amazon, and they can buy the games from us here in Idaho. Again, the shipping can be kind of expensive unless you're in the United States, but that's why we made it so that everything is digital, so that people all over the world can access all the games and the exercises easily.
So Narda, this is such an amazing program. Tell us a little bit, why is there there's some challenges to expand this program? What do you see in the future? What is your vision of where you want to go to in the next 5-10 years?
Well, in the next year, I would love to digitize the Spanish program, because there are people who want to learn English, and it's very helpful when people learn learn to read, the concept of reading in their own language first. It can be done. We've done it. Even if somebody can't read in their own language, it's just harder. It takes longer. But if we can teach them to read in their own language, and most languages are easier than English, Spanish, 2 hours. So once we digitize the Spanish program, a student won't need to go through. We still have it in the box. They'll just be able to, just like the English program, go and buy it. And it will be a Spanish speaker. We already have someone right here who would help put that together. So I guess and then any language in the world where there's large populations of illiterate people, we can create Nardagani in any language in the world, or we could also create it in places where people are going and they want to learn the language. They want to learn to read. I was thinking, the US government going into Arab speaking countries, they could learn to read the Arabic and then have an easier time conversing like I did with Japanese. So I very much look forward to expanding the number of languages that we have adapted the Nardagani symbols to, and then digitizing them so people can just come on and have a teacher saying, okay, let's do this next, and easily teaching. That's the biggest place I see we're going.
Well, thank you, Narda. Is there any other question? I see here, John. It's spelling is very difficult for me because of the multiple sounds that vowels and vowels combination can make. Can this system help me know when to spell with a correct vowel or vowel combination? Thank you, John.
Yes. The very first slide I showed, other than the introduction, was the Buell pilot program here in Southern Idaho, where we taught 76 sixth graders. Very low literacy. We tested their reading, fluency, and their spelling, because people report that after going through our program, even if it's just buying the $29 program and going through the 6 lessons, the knowing all the sounds of all the letters, that's the foundation of our program. We teach every sound of every letter, and being able to visualize those symbols really helps spelling. So I see going into schools like we did with Buell, we taught the whole 6th grade Nardagani, whether they could read or not, and their spelling improved. If they could read, their spelling got better. And the teachers and the other teachers in the other classes reported that not only does our program help with reading, but it really does help with spelling. That's a great question, John. Thank you.
This is fantastic. Yes, spelling it's a must in English because it's so hard. So
well, and a lot of the vowels you learn are just silent. Like in the word read, the A is silent. And that's one of the things that you learn about spelling is, okay, which one's silent? And your brain kind of goes and can figure it out once you've gone through the program. It's easier. It's not perfect, but it's easier to figure out which letters are silent and what sound each letter is making.
Narda, this has been amazing, really, truly amazing. And I hope many will take advantage of this. We will make sure this video gets shown everywhere because it's such an amazing program. On that note, Narda, would you like to just give us a closing remarks, and then we'll make a few announcements of the following webinars.
Okay. Yes, I would like to say that if you haven't already watched the Tedx Talk, that's a great overview in less than 10 minutes, and it shows the excitement of Sven learning to read. People love watching that part. It's at the end. The other thing is that on our website, under How It Works, we have a free masterclass. It's 20 minutes, and it's me. I built the masterclass, and it's my voice and my visual a little bit on there. And it's a 20-minute look into how we teach the program. And for $29, you can just simply go to our website and buy our program and go through it, and go through the introduction and go through the lessons. And even just spending 2 hours going through the program, even if you're not teaching a student, just understanding the foundation of English through the way that we teach it, I believe is a really great thing for your brain too. We actually have even someone with dementia who's going through and helping expand their brain by learning the symbols and all the sounds of all the letters, their English as a first language. So it's very helpful.
This is,
there's one more question there. Will I be able to forward the replay? Because it'll be a link, right? And people can share the link and come right here whenever they'd like, correct? Probably.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that
so.
it's a very simple program, and it's very affordable because the millions of dollars that the government spends, people spend thousands of dollars to get their kids to read, and still they have problems. So this is something that is very, very unique, and very. We thank you so much, Narda, because this is very close to my heart. As I say, Women for Solutions are seeking real, simple solutions to solve the biggest problems of our life, and scale them as much as we can. So on that, I would like to close this webinar and mention that our next webinar, again, is about education and is on June the 30th and at noon UK time, and it's called Love Pedagogy, Pedagogy of Wisdom in Intuition and Freedom. And the creator of this program, Ina Gressmane, she's from European, and for the last 20-30 years she's been teaching her kindergarten and grades programs are all based on love. It's a fascinating new approach, so necessary in this society, especially because what she teaches is for kids to be empathetic, to learn how to deal with conflict, and be connected with one another and not disconnected emotionally. So we will have the recording of this webinar in our website, womenforsolutions.com. And so thank you, everybody. And with this, we'll close the webinar. Narda, again, thank you for all this 20 years of amazing work as a true social entrepreneur.
Thank you. And please reach out to me by phone or email. It's right on our website, my phone number and my email. And I love to help and guide and answer questions. Nardagani.com. I'm here for you. Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome. You're welcome.